Hello and welcome to all of our GOLD viewers who are here with us today. I'm Kristen Schwartz, licensed midwife and one of the MCs here at GOLD. And I'm here today with Nichelle Clark. Hi, Nichelle.
Hello, hello. Thank you guys for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you back here at Gold. And this time you have a fantastic presentation planned for us called Strategies for Balancing Breastfeeding, Pumping, and Sleep. Whoa, that's a big
Yeah,
topic right there.
exactly.
And this presentation is part of our lactation add-on package called Sleep Solutions, Strategies for Nighttime Breastfeeding Success.
Yeah.
We all know how tricky those night times are, right? So yeah, so we put together a nice little bundle because as lactation IBCLCs, lactation care providers, midwives, doulas, we get a lot of questions about what happens at night and how can we assist our parents there more. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about you, Nichelle. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my goodness. Well, I am a board certified lactation consultant. I also am a U.S. Navy veteran, and I have two children of my own, 7 and 3. And
Mm.
my husband and I had children. I say later in life. I was 30. It wasn't too late in life, but I was 30, and I was in corporate America. I was in my life. Like I knew how I wanted these things to pan out. And of course, having children is so unpredictable. You don't know who is going to, come out of your body.
Mm.
And so everyone was like, "Oh my God, you're never gonna sleep." Like even before they gave me parenting advice, you're never gonna sleep. You're never gonna sleep. And so I literally had it in my brain, like, okay, I just have to stay awake for the next 2 years, no rest. And so that's really kind of how I got into lactation and sleep. And I was like, no, I want to breastfeed and I want to occasionally take a nap. And so that's pretty much my story. And that's how we got here.
That's how we got here. And I
Yeah.
know you are also, an expert in pumping, right? Like tell it, that's also your own story there, right there, right?
Oh yeah, pumping is my jam. So when I got pregnant with my son, I was transitioning out of the military and I had landed my dream corporate job, Fortune
Mm,
500 company. Everything was great falling into place. And I was like, well, I want to feed, but I know I'm going to have to go back to work. And at this time, the job had me traveling for 1 whole week every single
mm.
month. So I was like,
Whoa,
well, how am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to feed the baby? I can't take the baby and my husband with me every single time I need to go.
right.
And so I was about 4 months pregnant when I decided that I was going to only pump. Now, I didn't know that it was called exclusive pumping at the time, but I was just like,
Right,
maybe I can just, instead of latching, I can just use the pump from the beginning. I'm going to use it for work anyway, right? And so
right.
my exclusively pumping journey came to be that way. And I ended up exclusively pumping. My oldest is 7. I exclusively pumped for him for 5 years. He kind of got
Wow.
lucky because it overlapped with my daughter's birth, but he has never been to the breast and has actually gotten breast milk longer than my nursing child. So, yeah, that's pretty much my baby. And when I was navigating that, there wasn't a lot of information out of there. He was born in
Mm-hmm.
2017. That's
Yeah.
not that long ago, but it seems like ages when we're talking about data and research and
Yeah.
products kind of coming out. So, yeah, I exclusively pumped with him and we took naps. We did go to sleep too. We did.
That that is fantastic. Did you get a lot of pushback when you said I wanted to just exclusively pump? I can see like some professional, like healthcare providers going like, "Oh, why don't you just breastfeed?" or "Why don't
Yeah.
you just bottle feed formula?" I mean, especially that must have not been very easy, right? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it was super crazy. Lots and lots of pushback. I saw multiple lactation consultants. I was that person who was prepared, right? I was like,
Right.
I took a breastfeeding class. My husband took a breastfeeding class. I made my in-laws, take a breastfeeding class. And, it was just like insane. And so I was doing it, and everyone, the kind of consensus was like, I mean, you can if you want to, but it's never gonna last. I remember my son being sick early on, and I had to call the doctor, call the nurse line for our pediatrician, and they asked me about feeding, and I was like, "Oh, he takes, this amount every 3 hours." And she asked me if I was breastfeeding or bottle feeding, and I remember saying yes. are you breastfeeding? Are you bottle feeding? It wasn't, are you breastfeeding or formula feeding? And I remember saying yes. And I was like, well, he takes this amount every few hours. And she's like, I thought you said you were breastfeeding. And I was like, I am, I'm just pumping for him. And it had nothing to do with his sickness. And she was like, well, if you don't put him to the breast, your milk supply is just going to dry up. And
Mm-hmm.
he was about 2 months at this time. And I was just like, that's not really helpful. And then I went on to do it for 5 years. So I never ran into her again. So I could be like, no, it didn't. But yeah,
Right.
he's
Yeah.
never been to a breast a day in his life.
And and so many misconceptions too, like what you just
Yeah.
said, like that your doctor or somebody just mentioned, oh, if you don't put the baby to the breast, it will dry up, I mean, all these, we need a better education because clearly that's not the case.
Yep.
There's many people who very successfully just exclusively pump and are very successful with that. So, these kind of scare techniques, I mean, it makes it difficult because parents who don't know about this, they rely on their doctor or whatever for information. If that would be somebody else, they might have gotten scared and saying like, oh yeah, I better not do this, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. And when we talk about, feeding goals, who
yeah.
goals, and what we want for children, like that might have deterred me away from having a
Hmm.
healthier child that had human milk.
Right.
Because again, some people are, well, if it's just going to dry up anyway, I might as well not even try. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Hmm. So, coming to your presentation, and of course, your own experience, and of course, your experience as a lactation consultant, IBCLC, what do you see are usually the biggest challenges that new parents face when trying to kind of balance breastfeeding, pumping, and sleep? Because there's a lot going on, like
Mhm.
especially for, as you mentioned, if you're going back to work, you're trying to build up a milk supply for, when that happens, or for whatever reason. So some families end up, breastfeeding, pumping both, or exclusively one or the other. So
Mhm.
what kind of challenges do you usually see?
A lot of the challenges are just they're so defeated and exhausted by the time they
Mm,
get to me. They've been doing all of these different things, and the process is so complicated and so convoluted. And so we have to kind of dial it back to
mm,
making it as simple as possible.
mm,
But waking up to pump or having a pump before you go to sleep is one more step. It's one more thing that they have to do. So I really work with them to try and figure out what works for their family. What support do you have? What support don't you have? You don't have support? Well, let's lay the baby on the bed next to you safely, no blankets, and
mm,
let's have you sit right there and pump. Oh, you can't do a
mm,
20-minute pump? Can you do 15 minutes? What can you do? Can you do 10 minutes? Oh, you don't have a double electric and you don't really like it. What about a manual pump? Hey, let's
mm,
hand express. So teaching them different ways, as my grandma used to say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So just using all of our
yeah,
toolboxes and our tools, but I see a lot of them are just very exhausted, very defeated.
yeah,
Um, and they don't know how to manage it. If it's a two-parent household, you have two people. And so a lot of the times the parents are so focused on getting the baby to sleep, they're not really focusing on how
who's
they
in
can
there?
maximize their sleep. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And that's so important. We all need sleep, and of course, there is less when a new baby is there too. But sleep is important too for the parent, of course. Also very important for mental health. And you are a sleep coach as well, and there's a lot of pushback about sleep coaching, but there is gentle ways of doing this. So tell me a little bit about the sleep coaching aspect of everything.
Yeah, it gets such a bad rap. And so a lot of people they want sleep trainers. I'm not a
Yeah,
trainer. I'm not here to train your baby to do anything. And so I'm a holistic sleep coach. And holistic literally just means looking at everything and everybody that's happening with this child, happening with the family. One of the big things is like if you have a child that's in daycare, you have to approach it a little bit different. You can't turn off all the lights and have a nice quiet environment and try to help this child sleep or this baby sleep. So helping families to really manage that. There is no forcing of the baby's body or to do anything that
right.
it's not ready for. So with, holistic sleep coaching, we're really just helping the parents navigate through it and find, things and solutions that'll work for their family. Everything's not going to work for everybody. Every baby and family is different. So we really just try to help them to maximize what they have and just bring in maybe some new perspectives that they hadn't considered.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Mm,
Also like thinking a little bit out of outside of the box and yeah,
yeah,
I think that sounds absolutely
yeah,
wonderful. Thank you for
yeah.
explaining that. Another point I'm very interested in is we're learning a lot about, the components of milk, or how milk is so specific to even the time of day or night, right?
Hmm.
And so I find it fascinating also about the prolactin levels, oxytocin and such. And I don't know if you know the answer to this, but do you think or see or have read that there is a difference in milk if you're pumping or breastfeeding? Is there any difference from what we can tell? Because I've heard people say, "Oh, you need to do the breastfeeding because the milk is not, the components are not real." I think that's not right. But you please explain this to me.
Yeah, so there is a theory out there, a theory that, once the baby latches to the breast and the saliva makes the changes happen, there is really no explanation on how that happens,
Hmm.
because what receptors in the breast is happening that. But we also know that milk is synthesized from your blood. It is all, it's pulled from your bloodstream. So how is that happening at the breast? I've not read
Right.
any data on that. There actually is an article out there that talks about the changes of the milk once it hits the baby's mouth, though, right? So,
Mm.
inside the mouth, what is happening, how it's tailored to baby. So, there are not a lot of studies out there. I personally think it's a bunch of, but, again, we have to weigh the pros and cons.
Right.
Is that enough of a reason? If a parent says, I don't want to nurse,
Right.
is that enough of a reason to say, well, you know what, you shouldn't get because even the WHO standards tell us that, human milk
Milk.
is the
Hmm.
best thing for babies, even donor
Right.
milk. So if we think of it in
Yes.
that case,
Right.
my milk may be the best thing for a critical infant in the NICU, and I've never met that baby in my life. They've never been to my
Correct.
breast, but that's still the best thing for them.
It's still the
So
best.
I try to
Yeah.
encourage parents and let them know like it's nature's perfect food, no matter which way they get it. So do your
Perfect.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sounds fantastic. Nichelle, before I let you go, any final last words for our viewers here for with regards to the topic?
Oh my gosh, I just want to encourage, you guys to think outside the box, take some of the tips that you may see in the training, but think of your own. It's going to depend on where you are in the world, what kind of clients you see, what settings you see them in. So I just encourage you to support them, try to read up and train on what's happening in the world around you. There are so many times where I have to learn new things about pumping. I have to learn new things about sleep and read the new studies in order to help these families and really just be flexible and kind of catching up with the times.
Ah, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much for being
Yeah.
here today and talking about the presentation strategies for balancing breastfeeding, pumping, and sleep as part of the Sleep Solution Strategies for Nighttime Breastfeeding Success Lecture Pack. Thank you so very much for being here with me today.
You're welcome.
And now I have some information for our viewers. If you're interested in this presentation and all the other presentations in the lecture pack, this lecture pack right now is an add-on package for our Gold Lactation online conference. And we get started with that conference on April 1st. We have a fantastic keynote presentation that is open access and available to everyone available. So make sure you sign up for that. And that you will find at goldlactation.com. So I hope to see everyone at the conference. Thank you all and bye-bye.